Spencer Pryor, how are you?
How are you hanging in there, mate?
I've got the energy drink, so I'm still awake, thank you. So yeah, I'm doing all right. So my math isn't good enough to work out how many hours I've got left. So it's probably just as well. But yeah, we've had some really good guests. Kevin Mayer came in as that was great. So we've had quite a few different Southend United past and present players. So I've got Duncan Jupp coming up soon as well. So that will be an interesting one. So yeah, brilliant. But thank you so much for coming on. A real pleasure to talk to you. So if we start right at the start, how old were you when you first joined Southend?
Oh, I left straight from school, actually. I came in straight from school. So I would have been 16 on a YTS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But my first thing that I'd done with Southend, like, it was really nostalgic seeing a picture of the old South Bank and what that looked like before. And my first experience was probably at about 12, maybe. I might have even been around 11 or 12. And it was training on the old concrete car park behind the South Stand with Frankie Banks.
Wow.
And yeah, it was literally come and have a training session with Southend. And as a kid, we went there and it was literally on concrete in the car park behind with like these metal small-sided goals. And that would have been about 11 or 12. So that was my first experience. And then went straight in there from school, straight on a YTS, £27.50 a week. £27.50 a week, Chris. £27.50. We cleaned the boots, washed the kit, swept the terraces, painted the changing room. It was child labour. It was literally, we did everything as the youth team. We did the lot for £27.50 a week, and occasionally we got to do some football and train.
Oh, incredible. But you came through character building, wasn't it? So you came through that, and to make your Southend debut and then come through as a senior first team player, how much did that mean to you?
So I made my debut. I think I was still in my second year YTS, and at the end of the first year, because I went in as a centre forward, and then Kevin Locke pulled me in at the end of the first year and said, "Mate, we got to find you a different position because you ain't going to make it as a centre forward." So that's when they stuck me at the back in the second year, and then Paul Clark took over, and Clarkey was obviously playing in the first team, and then there was that transition period where Dave Webb came in. And I'll never forget the first session. And I was still a YTS, but Davey Webb was over. We walked at Gloucester Park and it was the end of a training session. And Clarkey wanted to do some attacking, like just attacking balls and scoring goals. And I saw Webby and he goes, "You come with me, come and you be the defender against me." And I saw Webby walking across the car park. And I don't think Paul Clark scored. It was one of those where it was like really inspirational seeing David Webb come in. And it was like, you ain't scoring against me today. So, and it was literally at the end of a training session. And yeah, it was, and at the end of that, I probably went back and I think I was on the cleaning the physio room at the time with Buster Footman. So it was, it was really grounding, actually. So really grounding. And then during that period, there was a bit of a transition and we played Crystal Palace and can't think who else we played. We played those two friendlies. We played Palace and I think it might have been Gothenburg. Wow. And they were two friendly games that we played. And I think Shane Wesley might have been ill or injured or something. So they stuck me in there to play against Mark Bright and Ian Wright in those in that Crystal Palace game. And then that was maybe a weekend. And then we had Gothenburg in the week. So and then it kind of backed off, and I didn't get a debut for another few weeks, and then something happened, and I got thrown in.
Yeah. Didn't you get quite a bad injury quite early on in your Southend career, and how big of a setback was that?
Huge, actually, but it was really so. Yeah, I broke my tibia against Peterborough.
Mm.
I, the good thing about it was that it probably led to me staying at Southend for another 3 or 4 years and getting more games under my belt, because if I hadn't have broke my leg, I'd have probably left that summer.
Yeah.
Quite possibly would have left. There was talk at the time with a couple of clubs, one in particular that's not far from Southend, that might have been on the table, that I might have actually gone there. But obviously with the broken leg, nothing happened. And then I got to do my rehab with Terry Fennick at Tottenham, because he had the same injury as me, broken tibia. So I got to go and do my rehab there. In return, they took Justin Edinburgh on loan, and we got Guy Butters come in and fill in for me. So yeah, that was kind of the era for that.
Yeah. And then you came back. My first season as properly as a Southend fan was the one that ended with that promotion at Bury. And you were back playing then, weren't you? I'm sure my memory's not playing tricks on me. So how special was that to be a part of?
It was brilliant. Like that was the start of the journey to get all the way from sort of the old fourth division up to the first division. And you know, we just rode the momentum. We had a great group of players, a lot of good, experienced senior boys around. That, you know, players like Davy Crown that knew where the goal was, and Benji was a great foil for him. Dave Martin and Paul Roberts, these real characters in the changing room. Whereas like an 18, 19-year-old boy, you've got when you're training against Roy McDonough every day and he's trying to split your eye or break your nose or leaving his, and even in training, it was real character building that made you sort of grow up and become a man and realize it was men's football.
Yeah, definitely. And then we ended up into the second tier, which was incredible. And then your career really took off. I'm sure it was Norwich that you went to from there, and that was a fantastic move for you. They were really sort of flying high at the time, weren't they?
Well, I sort of come to that end of that season, and I think New Year's Day we beat Newcastle at home, and we're probably
top of the league, didn't we? Yeah,
top of the first division, which was you know, in the end we finished up. I think we only finished up just staying up. Like the wheels come right off, but I think my decision had already been made to look and try and go to the next level. And it wasn't anything against Southend, but I wanted to see how far I could push myself. And, you know, Norwich, it sort of come down to a decision between going to Norwich or Wolves. So I met up with Wolves, with Graham Turner, and he was really keen. But the thing that sold us on Norwich was the European football, the opportunity to go and potentially get some games and play in Europe. It was something that, as a boy from Southend, you never really envisaged that was going to happen. So it was always that was my favourite and preference.
Yeah, and that was an incredible time for your career, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you know, I was still sort of the boy from Southend that was just trying to cut my teeth and get some, you know, see where I could play and get some minutes and games. And my debut for Norwich was against Wimbledon, which again was not the sort of team you wanted to make your debut against.
Yeah, character building again, wasn't it?
That was brutal.
And then, you played in Europe? You had some memorable times there, though, didn't you?
So what was happening was when Mike Walker really wanted to play a back three, he'd often sacrifice one of his midfielders, and it would often be Gary Megson that would get punted and left out. So Mike decided in the European campaigns that he wanted to go to a back three. So I didn't play in the Vitesse Arnhem game. either of those games. But then when he changed it away from home and went to a back five, well, he actually went a back three. So when he changed it to go to the back three and wing backs, then I'd get stuck in. So despite not playing against Vitesse, I got thrown in against Bayern. And then
so I thought you played that one, yeah.
Played the Bayern away. I didn't play Bayern at home because he went back to the back four for the home game. And then I played in Inter Milan where he went to the back three again. And then again, when we came back to our place, he went to a back four. So yeah, it was a bit of chopping, changing, but mate, it was my first season at Norwich, so I wasn't going to gripe getting some good games.
Yeah, and you were in my sticker book. I always remember that as well. I was always impressed that someone from Southend was in the sticker book. So that was great. That was always.
They were brilliant, weren't they?
Yeah, they were fantastic.
And Spencer Priors, mate. They were the easiest ones to get, and it was like, it's like, where's the superstars? It's always 10 of me.
And it was Leicester next from there, is that right? That was another successful time. I mean, most clubs were successful for you, weren't they? It was the career you had. But how do you look back at your time at Leicester?
Well, I had I just won Player of the Year at Norwich, and it was a real challenging season because Mike Walker left and went to Everton, and then we had a little bit of chopping, changing, and the club got relegated. We had Gary Meg. First of all, we had John D, and then we had Gary Megson. And I was young and raw, but under them, they sort of stuck with the older boys, which was everyone's their right to, right? So I didn't get much of a look in with them. And Martin O'Neill came in, and I loved playing under him. He was a breath of fresh air, and it was a really good season under him for the sort of 3/4 of the season, and then he joined Leicester. Ironically, at the end of that season, I got the Player of the Year, but we were still in the Championship, and Leicester came about. Martin made a phone call and said he wanted to get me in there, so to go and play for him, but also to go back to the Premier League was something that I really wanted to do, and yeah, I was excited to go and back and play for Martin again.
And that League Cup, you did fantastically well in that, didn't you? That must be like one of the best memories of your career.
Well, we had a great season, right? So we were about 8th, maybe in the Premier League, 8th or 10th. So we were top half of the league. And we were doing great in both cups, the FA Cup and the League Cup. And we got beat in the FA Cup in the quarter-final by Chelsea. Erland Johnson died for a penalty in the replay. And we actually thought we were going to have a good chance of doing a cup double. And, you know, I think it was the same teams that were still floating around. Middle was still in it. Wimbledon was still in it. So if we'd have beat Chelsea in the quarter-final, we'd have probably got Wimbledon again in the semi-final, where we played Wimbledon in the semi-final with a League Cup as well. So we thought we had a great chance. Luckily, we beat Wimbledon in the League Cup semi-final and got to play Middlesbrough, which was their, you know, they had an absolute gun team that spent an absolute fortune. So as a Southend boy, and someone asked me last week, like, what was your favourite game ever? And it's really, really, really hard to pinpoint one, honestly. But to play at Wembley, you know, you grow up wanting to play at Wembley in a cup final, in a proper cup final. So to have had that chance, I think that probably is the highlight. But there's so many, like we spoke about the Norwich Bayern game. You know, when we played at Norwich and we played at Anfield in the last ever game of the cup, there was some really, really memorable games. But as a boy to play at Wembley, I don't remember anything about the game. Literally.
Really?
Tell you anything about the game. It was just a game, and I was focused on the game, and I can remember walking out at the start, and I can remember at the end. I do remember one point in the game where it was a bit of a surreal out of body moment, like experience, going, hang on, what is this? What am I doing here? That sort of experience. But to have played at Wembley as a boy, I think is and not lose. We didn't win there; we won the replay, but to not lose at Wembley was pretty satisfying.
Yeah, it's an incredible memory that you're rightfully proud of. And if I think I got it right, it was Derby County, then Manchester City, which are two more very big clubs to have represented.
Yeah, and Derby came about like we were really settled in Leicester. Like we had a couple of kids there, and we were quite settled in the house. Derby came along. It was completely out of the blue. Leicester had made a couple of signings in the summer, and Martin said, Derby want to have a chat to you. And if it doesn't work out, you can stay. I'm more than happy. But if you want to go and have a chat to Derby, and I went and spoke to Jim Smith. I loved what they were trying to achieve and what they wanted to do. They had an incredible group of players, like a really top group in Igor Stimac, Chicha Baiano, Stefano Aranio. I'd never really played with like top good international players, Paolo Wanchop, Lars Bohinen, and it was a culture change for me. And to go into an environment that was, I would still say it was the most professional environment that I'd ever seen. Pre-training, we'd go in and there would be these massage chairs, like lazy boy things, and there would be video analysis stuff pre-training, and we had Bill Bezic as the sports psych for Derby. Steve McLaren was the assistant, and Steve Round, who's now Arteta's assistant. That was the coaching staff. So it was incredible. The staff were amazing, and to work day in, day out with that group, it was next level. So Derby was really good and enjoyable. Loved it there. And it got to the stage where I probably played the most games I've played in any one season. I think I played maybe 38, 40 games, including cup games. It got to the next season and I went to Jim and I said, how's it going? He said, yeah, good, really good, really good. Don't know whether they give you a big fat contract or sell you. I was like, what? And when a manager says that to a player, it causes sort of a bit of uncertainty. You're not quite sure. And Man City came along and said they wanted to sign me. And apparently I only found this out about 5 years after, but I was a bit of a sacrifice because the club Derby was struggling financially at the time. So I was the sacrifice to kind of balance the books before the end of the season. And I was pretty disappointed, but ultimately to go and play for a club like Man City was, it was something, it was a drop down in a division. It was to go down to the Championship and they were pushing for the Premier League. And I thought, you only get one chance to go and play for a club that size. Even though they were in the Championship, when you walked out the tunnel and saw the Kippax, mate, yeah, it was iconic. The rest of the ground, it was a bitsy ground, and the training place was at Platt Lane, and it was a real old school training venue. But to be part of that group, to get them up to the Premier League was, it was a special time. It was really enjoyable time to be at Man City.
Yeah, and then to Cardiff from there, was it hard because you just said you're a Southend boy to do all this sort of travelling and go here, there, and everywhere, or is that something that you become accustomed to?
Kind of became accustomed to like moving around, and you know what? Some players don't want to move, and they want to stay in London or they want to stay around the area, and that's fine. I would have gone wherever I felt comfortable that was going to give me a new challenge, and I didn't want to just sit and stay on the play, not play. And Kevin Keegan came into Man City. I probably wasn't going to play under him. I never even met him. I never spoke to him. I never spoke to him. I never met him. I got a phone call from Alan Cork at Cardiff saying, I've had a chat to Man City, and they've said, look, you're probably not going to play much this year, and do you want to come and have a chat with us? So I went down and I met with Sam Herman and Crockett. I liked their idea. They were in League Two at the time, and they had this plan of or I think they'd gone to League One. They had a plan of what they wanted to do. And they've just gone up from League Two to League One. They wanted to keep the momentum going. They had a few boys in the pipeline that they wanted to sign, but no one had committed. Like Sam could sell ice to an Eskimo. He was brilliant, but no one had made the commitment to go. So I went down there, met with Corky and Sam. We got on really well. And I said, look, really, I like what you're trying to do. And they offered me a silly contract, stupid goal bonuses and clean sheet bonuses, and it was nuts. And I went, hang on a minute, I've still got 2 years left on a Man City contract. I'm not walking away from that for this. So it was like, we both really liked it, and we left saying like it was kind of dead. And then I met Alan Cook. I was over in Sorrento, and Corky was in Capri. I'll get the ferry over. So we went and caught up, had a few beers. In fact, we had a lot of beers. Incredible lot of beers. And I was a bit rough. I was a bit rough on the ferry back to Sorrento. But by the time I got back, I had a phone call from Sam Maman going, it's on. Whatever you want, you can have. So we finished up signing. I moved my beautiful family from Manchester down to a place called the North. It was in the middle of nowhere. Like they just love Manchester life, right? And then I moved them to this place called the North, and it was very, very different culture change for the family. But eventually we settled in there. We got 3 years there, and yeah, it was a good time. It was interesting. We missed out on promotion the first year, and then we got up via the playoffs the second year, winning at the Millennium Stadium, a full Millennium Stadium full of Cardiff fans. So it took a year longer, but we managed to achieve what I was brought in to do, and I was proud to be part of that journey.
Yeah, and then your journey went full circle, and you ended up back here. Was that a tough decision to make, or did you always want to come back to Southend, or how did that all come around?
So I'll tell you how it came around, right? I kind of had enough of football down at Cardiff, and then I was going to pack it in. And I might have been 33 and I'd had enough.
Yeah.
And so we moved the family back. We bought a place in Ramsden Bell House, and we were going to redevelop this place there. And we got planning permission and stuff done on this house. And we just moved back there. And then I got a phone call from Phil Parkinson, and he said, don't give up yet, mate. I want to come and have a chat to you. So he came to our place. We were renting a place in Craze Hill at the time, and he came down and he saw us, and he said, don't pack in yet. Come and do some training with us, and we'll sort a contract out for you. So we said, all right, well, if it can be a 2, I don't want to do 1 year. I don't want to do a year. We could do a couple of years, then we'll have a look at it. So I went down and I was training with Colchester, and Tilly got a wind of it, and he, piss off, mate. This ain't happening. You ain't going. Leave it. I said, oh well, I kind of get it. I'm not going to finish playing. I'll keep going, and we'll see what we can do. And ultimately, he said, mate, you ain't going to Colchester. So he put Ron under the pump, and before you know it, I finished up back at Southend, and I'm glad I did. Actually, I'm kind of glad I did. I would have. That would have been a big regret going there and finishing my career there. So it was good to come back home and get another 3 years there. And again, a bit like the first time where we went from the old 4th division up to the first, we did the same again, which was back-to-back promotions twice. So yeah, and it was a good note to finish on.
Yeah, it was incredible, wasn't it, that time? And being your hometown club as well, it's extra special, isn't it?
100%. And to have had the promotions in the first cycle, and then come back and had the promotions again in the second cycle, Mate, my biggest achievement in that second cycle was actually getting Sean Gota to come and play for Southend United. I don't know how I pulled it off.
Did you have a lot to do with that as well?
Well, I must be a salesman because we needed a striker, and I was like, I'm going to call the GOAT. So I dropped to him, and we managed to get him down here. And yeah, it was brilliant. It was great. A player like him play for Southend.
Yeah, it was incredible. So the back-to-back promotions, and then the win against Manchester United as well, which must be incredibly memorable.
It was great, but for me at that stage of my career, it was a great win and it was a great achievement. But I'd gone home by the time I was back home by the time the game had finished and done, and I was in changing room, gone, celebrate, lovely, thanks, move on. Whereas I think for a lot of the boys that were coming up, it was massive, right? Whereas I was like, yeah, done, move on. And I kind of got to a different stage in my life with my family and things, and yeah, but no one can take it away from us in terms of what we achieved that night against a very strong Man United side. It was a pretty special night.
Yeah, 100%, very memorable. And obviously, that was your last season. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that in football. Did you know the time was right to retire at that point?
Well, we'd looked at coming over to Australia. So we had some friends in London, and it was like, oh, this place is shit. Let's move on. Let's go and look at something else. And this Australian advert come on the telly, and we'd had a few Stellas, and the girls had drunk a little bit of wine, and my wife's pretty determined character, and we saw this advert, drunk. And before you know it, the girls had booked a flight to come and check out Australia. And she fell in love with it. Like, the missus fell in love and said, like, it's amazing. You'll love this place. And we looked then at sort of getting visas done. And this was probably around the Christmas time. So we looked at visas and we were struggling. We were really challenged to get a visa. And then something happened and we met this migration agent who came up with this brilliant idea. And ironically, from that moment, then we started the process and we actually got the visa. So it timed that we had to be in Australia by, I think, the 1st of June or the 31st of May that year, which timed perfectly for the end of the season. So it was just a natural thing to maybe 6 months out from the season to go, right, we're going to Australia. So it gave me a nice sort of transition to say, that's it, I'm done, knowing that I'm down here.
And how's it all gone for you finally since then? That's a big decision to make, isn't it? Move to completely the other side of the world. But are you one you're glad you made, and how's it been?
I am glad. I mean, I miss the football dearly. Like, I miss the football and you know, the banter and the culture. I miss that side of it, but it's been a great place to bring the kids up. It's been fantastic. Like, so our eldest was 11 at the time that we moved here, and the others were sort of 6 and 3, I think. So it was a good time or maybe 8 and 3. So it was a good time to move the family down here, and it's been a great place for them to grow up and be brought up. They're all Aussie now and institutionalized, and you know, it's been good. It's been enjoyable, but I do miss the football.
Are you still involved in football at all? I know you had a few coaching stints. Are you still involved?
Yeah, I'm doing some coaching. So I've been working here in the New South Wales Premier League, looking after the girls' senior football team. I think since I moved away from the UK, I fell into coaching in women's football, but that kind of came from doing I think I was doing my A license at the time, and the national team coach came in, and there's a boy, Robbie Hooker, who finished up going and working with Holger Ozick with the Socceroos. So there was a spot and he needed an assistant for the 2011 Women's World Cup in Germany. And I was like, I've never coached from before, but let's go for it. And kind of from that moment, so I went with the Women's National Australian team in 2011. And then I also took the under-20s. And then from then I went and taken Thailand's women national team, and also just finished last year with PNG. So I had to go in and support PNG's women's national team for the Women's World Cup qualifiers. I think it was more, can you come in for a short 6-month stint? It was work. I was working really close with the team from Oceania Football Confederation, who really wanted damage limitation, to be honest, Chris. It wasn't about trying quality. It was, look, don't get me wrong. If we'd have qualified for the Women's World Cup, it would have been the biggest miracle ever. But I think it was more damage limitation against Panama to just try and make sure we were competitive. And it was good. We got some good raps. We got some good feedback from the guys at OFC and also from Football New Zealand. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of coaching, but mostly in the women's game.
Yeah. And last question, do you still follow Southend? Do you still keep an eye out? I know you get the answer to this one, but it still means a lot to you, doesn't it?
Owner now. How good's that? We got an Aussie. Only and I'll tell you what, and I know I've spoke to you about this, mate. They are pretty relentless, and they are the professionalism that Justin will bring to the club, and the positivity will be something that you've never seen before. And it won't be the same blah blah football chat. It will be really unique and different, and he'll actually get things done. So, you know, for him to lead a consortium of local businessmen as well, I think that's the key part of it, is we've got locals in there. I think the new stadium's been binged by all accounts.
Yeah.
Roots Hall's going to get done up, which I think is fantastic.
Me too. I much prefer that, yeah.
Plot, Chris. It's a good plot. So make the most of it. Do some work on Roots Hall, get that back. The new training ground, I think, is a really important part of the furniture as well. And hopefully the club can start to own its assets again, get some stuff back under its belt. So they're not just buying a name of a club. You're actually buying something that's got infrastructure. And to be fair, like Clem Mafaraj, who went in at Swindon, he's done exactly the same with Swindon, and the Aussies understand it, that to be a good club, you need to actually own your own infrastructure as well. It's fundamental, right? So onwards and upwards. I know it's all got to get signed over, and it's looking like the middle of November, but it's going to be a great time for the club, and I'm really looking forward to the next chapter.
Brilliant. Top man. Great note to finish on. Thanks so much. Always a pleasure to talk to you. So thank you very much indeed.
Keep smiling and keep grinding it out. Keep drinking your coffees, and if you don't, or if you're having lots of Red Bull, make sure you drink some water in between, mate. Otherwise, you're going to get hyper off the coffee, and then you'll start talking weird. All right.
I'll do that anyway. So right. Brilliant. Pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Good luck. Hope you raise lots of money, mate. Well done.
Thank you. Very kind. Thank you.